And we're live.
Hi.
Hi. So this is another episode of the KEW Exchange where knowledge through experience transforms into wisdom. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's how I say the name. And this is the four of us today, and we're going to talk about holding space to allow magic to happen. And we have Annie Lee, Katharine Hargraves, and AdaPia E. And I'm not going anywhere near that. So we're just not going to. Even though I pronounce it correctly, I'm still not going to try. I'm just not going to. So for anyone who doesn't know Annie, I guess we'll just go around robin of quick introductions. So we'll start with Annie, I guess, since.
Okay. So I'm Annie. If you know Mike and you don't know me, I don't know where you've been, but I'm the founder and CEO of Annie Lee LLC, which is a personal development and coaching business. I'm a mom, an entrepreneur, a podcast host. What else am I? A dog mom, lots of things. And we're here to change the world. That's what we're doing. Hi, Giannis. Sorry, I'm not hosting.
It's okay. I should have had you down there anyway.
Sometimes I forget. It's not my show.
Hey, Giannis. AdaPia, you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm AdaPia DeRico, and I professionally, I'm a real estate investor or invest in alts, really moving towards trying to get more women to be investing. As throughout my career, I've really recognized the importance of financial empowerment. And the more I speak to women, the more I realize that a lot of times they think saving is wealth building instead of investing. and I've really felt more and more called towards that direction. And it ties into a lot of what we're going to talk about. I'm imagining, and I talk about a lot, which is my awakening and the continued process of this waking up. And the more I wake up and the more I get connected to like my core intention and the way that I want to live, the more I'm actually moving into business, like more and more and more, instead of what a lot of people might do or think they need to do is like move in the opposite direction. Like, oh, business is bad and blah is all bad. And in reality, it's like how we serve or where we show up is indifferent as long as we know where we're coming from. So that's like my constant personal practice. And it just happens to weave into the financial empowerment piece. So that's a bit about me.
That's AdaPia. And then Katharine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katharine. This is my dog, Oba, who will be dropping in to say hi. And I am a writer and teacher of transformation. And my word for that is culture alchemist, because I'm really interested in how do we use the systems to really start to generate more transformation at large in our culture. And we're alive in a really fascinating time. When I think that a lot of those structures and the traditional ways that we've done things are ripe for evolution. And so I am very fascinated by transformational technologies, especially ones that have been around for a very long time. So I'm really fascinated by evolutionary patterns and translating these into actionable, accessible frameworks to help people continue to change their lives. Our world is disruptive, and that's not going to change.
Thank you. Okay, so I think that's as formal as we're going to get during this conversation, because I don't like formalities and I don't like being very formal. I like to go with the flow and allow the flow to take us where we're going to go with it. So who wants to talk about magic first?
Are we all raising our hands?
I was going to say, I volunteer cat.
I was like, I'm ready.
Go for it.
You just going to throw me in the deep end like that? There's no problem.
That's where you live.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, what is magic? Okay. Here's one of my favorite ways to kind of stir the magical pot. And this is just my opinion. So I'm curious to know what the group thinks, which is, this is not my quote. It's something that a friend shared with me at Burning Man, of all places. So very apropos. But they said that magic is the technology of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So I am, one thing I think a lot about is, how do we expand our consciousness? How do we move beyond knowing what we already know? How do we actually learn to see differently? And I don't know if I'd actually say that magic is the technology of consciousness so much. I think there's a lot of working definitions of magic that I don't know if I agree with them completely, but to me, magic is that which we cannot explain rationally necessarily, but that is still a force or an energy that is driving and moving our world. And to me, that really is starting to look like the animating invisible forces that are in our reality, right? Constantly, that are very natural and organic. And magic seems to be the word that we describe those things that we don't have a rational kind of worldview or framework for. So that's where I'll start.
Yeah, I feel like it also falls in the realm of fantasy, and there's a lot of dismantling and reframing and redefining of magic because we hear it, and there's the conditioning of, well, it's magical. It's like magical is fairy tales. It's something that is completely outside of us. It's accidental. It like, magic can be bestowed upon you by some like outside force if you're like a good girl or whatever the story is. And I think what is to me the most amazing thing about magic is that it's like always around us, like we always have access to it. And so it is like so much of everything you said, like the technology of consciousness. It is the invisible glue of alchemy. It's dark matter. It's, and we can call it in and we can make it happen because what is magic to me is like what is success to me. It's like totally subjective. And so I love to just, we talk about this all the time, like it's what you make of it. So if I say I'm magical, I'm going to be magical, whatever I want my magic to be. I think it's like we can just like grab it and like pull it in and use it.
So I don't know how I'm supposed to follow these eloquent women talking about magic, but I'm just going to go with it. First of all, Katharine, you'll like my shirt.
Woo! Yes, they are.
So, right? I mean, it's like really important to make sure everybody knows that. So magic to me is a little bit, it kind of is like non-magical in that it's magical because it's non-magical, if that makes any sense. Like to me, I have found more magic in my life becoming aligned, getting to my soul center and being aligned with my core values of who I really am. That's when I've experienced the moments of magic. See, to me, they're moments that you can grasp onto. It's like happiness. It's like this thing that you can't really see and you can't really feel, but you also can. So it's always around us. It's always surrounding us, but there are pieces of it that you can grab, and that's magical to me.
Yeah.
So, yes, magical is subjective, Kenny. You're magical, Kenny. You're definitely magical, Kenny. You're the magical optimist. For me, the way I describe magic has changed so drastically. First of all, everything with me is about wisdom and about the transfer of wisdom, person to person, conversation to conversation, generation to generation, culture to culture, whatever it is. And it's about holding space for wisdom, which in turn holding space for magic, which in turn is allowing, and magic just flows, and living in flow in your core values brings magic naturally into your life. When things just line up for you and you don't have to try anymore, when the pieces start falling on your plate and you're not seeking or searching and they just show up, that we can call it serendipitous, we can call it synchronicities, we can call it the universe at work. But to me, that's all magic, right? Getting out of the way and just allowing things to happen for you and not trying to control how they happen for you has really transitioned how I look at magic and how I perceive magic and understand magic. it's all about holding that safe space container, allowing the flow of the energy to go where it's going to go, and be able to just ride it, just ride the energy, go with it, and not fight it.
Yeah, it reminds me of this is like Huxley that said that like there's a part of the ego is like a reducing valve, which is actually like a part of our brain. And like so much of what you just said is, you know, getting out of the way or allowing is like opening up that reducing valve and just like opening it like way up so that everything that is literally around us, more of it flows in, because it's a total fallacy that we don't have access to everything. It's that piece, right, that's also kind of obscure sometimes, like get out of the way. It's like, how the hell do I get out of the way? Like, this is who I am. Like, it's so hard to like remove one's personality and ego and that reducing valve. But you know, with practice, it's like we all figure it out because it's different for everybody. But essentially it's like blow those doors open and that alignment happens, and then the magic happens. So what you just said just reminded me of that Aldous Huxley quote about the reducing valve.
I want to say what I hear is trust, a lot of trust. And I also hear that we live in a world that a lot of magic has been systemically divorced or disassociated, because this whole idea of like the ego or this like reducing valve, I tend to equate that with this idea of like, I know, right? Like the Western rational, like I need to explain, I need to logic, I need to justify. And so we've just inserted a very limited framework, which is a human framework, into the picture versus, as Michael was saying, how do I get out of the way and humble myself before this wild, mysterious universe and actually let it teach me?
That's describing, like when we talk about the breath framework and taking us through what we've created to go through our journey from beginning all the way through to healing, being the H, the allow part. You said that word, Mike. The allow part is the magical part. So when you can get out of your own way, to your point, and when you can move aside, that's when you truly allow, and you can go through, which is the T.
And I'm still not great at allowing. I mean, I'm really not. Like, there's parts of my life that I am horrible at allowing, but I'm getting better. And the lack of bruises is showing from my 4-year-old, right? So she's not beating the crap out of me anymore. So I'm allowing her to just be and really just have her freedom. And as simple as that sounds, it's like having a puppy or a dog or anything else. The patience that it teaches us and the relinquishing of control, which then we can turn back inward, because we're so programmed to control ourselves in every way, and have this microscopic view of ourselves to where we try to control every interaction, every word out of our mouth. We try to be perfect, perfectionism. Like, there's so many of these things that we've created upon ourselves. Luckily, I threw perfectionism out of the window a very long time ago. I moved into underachievementville, but that's not practical either. So there's this allowing versus standing into yourself at the same time. And you need to be prideful, appreciative, grateful towards yourself and what you do and how you act and how you handle yourself and how you work with others and what your purpose is in this world. But you also need to be humble enough not to go into ego, and if you do, aware enough to pull yourself back in.
Mm-hmm. How much does compassion play a role in this, right? Like, how much is compassion necessary for the allowing and for the dissolving of essentially the need to be right about our stories, about our beliefs, about who we are, about all of it. I'm curious from all of you, because as you were speaking, is that like there's so much compassion involved with getting out of the way and allowing, and the allowing to me is also allowing yourself to be human. Like, yeah, I have a control issue, a big one. Like I have so many issues, and I'm grumpy and I'm, whatever. And I have to allow that part of myself too. And actually, the more I have compassion or acceptance or allowance of the parts of me that I was like, oh, those are bad, don't show anybody that you're grumpy, is actually, it like opens up more of the big magical allowing, if you will. And I think one of the keys for me is actually being compassionate. I'm curious what y'all think.
So I completely hear you. And I think that to understand the definition of something, sometimes you have to know the opposite of it. And I think that when you mentioned perfectionism, Mike, that made me think that's the exact opposite of magic. That's not allowing, that's totally controlling. And so when I was just thinking, AdaPia, of the ways you were describing yourself, right? And we all have those thoughts. Then I thought, but you have this, and this gift.
Yeah.
And so the opposite of what you're saying will actually allow. The fact that, you're grumpy, you notice your moods, and that means you also have an up mood, and that's a beautiful place to be as well. So both are gifts.
Yeah.
So I think that perfectionism piece is what gets us in trouble, and that's what it removes the magic. And so when we can let go and allow that, that's when it can happen.
I think when we're talking about, let's go back to compassion real quick. It's like every other word that we can adjective that we can describe, or feeling or emotion, or you've got to start with self, right? It all starts with self. Like every one of these things starts with self, because if you don't have self-compassion, you'll never have compassion outward. If you can't reflect it inward, you're not going to reflect it outward. And you have to have self-love, you have to have self-care, you have to have self-appreciation, self-gratitude. I don't know if that's a right combination. Is it really? Just sounds horrible. Okay. But I think, when you start bringing these things back in towards you, and you start being able to work to get to a point that your self-worth is there, to where you know that you deserve it, you're worth it, you want to hold yourself to that space, that's when you start allowing yourself to feel and be free within yourself, and you hit that personal freedom, right? Which is something that Andy and I talk about all the time: personal freedom and peace, and finding your harmony, right? Finding your internal peace, and it's different for everyone, right? Like this is not something that's a straight line, or this isn't, I'm going to show you how I did it, it's going to perfectly work for you. It's, let me show you what worked for me, and take a piece of this that works for you, and then get creative on how to do the rest, right? That's kind of where we're at. And I think once you're able to do all these things towards self, then the rest of it falls in place.
Yep.
So turning the lens around.
Yeah.
Versus blame or outwards or trying to fix and control, turning it around and looking at yourself.
I'm just catching up on comments.
Yeah. I mean, I can share, like, I just recently had like a really big revelation, as like, I'm, constantly doing like this work, and it basically comes down to something really simple, but so like baked in, which is that, like, I essentially have been living my life out of a paradigm of fear, which is everybody until we realize it. But what it was is that I was trying to protect myself from the world, from people, from whatever. And I had all kinds of stories that I picked up or I made up. When I was able to like see that I was essentially seeking a form of safety, and trying to show up as like, I'm strong and I'm independent, but in reality, I built a whole structure of my life around its opposite, around fear of being controlled by other people or fear of being hurt. So I built up all these walls, especially around my heart. And the whole paradigm was like, you're actually living in fear out of fear, even though rationally I didn't think I was. But finding how like subtle and how nuanced that is was just groundbreaking for me, and a really important realization around that, what got me here is not what's going to get me there. So like where do I want to go, and how do I want to live differently to get there? Not that I'm not grateful for everything that I have, but the operating system was fear-based. The operating system was I need to protect myself. I can't be safe, or other people have to make me safe. And so Annie, you were talking about like the whole blame thing, right? Like it could be like with my husband, well, you don't make me feel safe, I don't know, psychologically or something. I don't know what it is. And it's like, that's not his job. And so in a way, the best defense is offense. So what it comes down to for me is I'm going to live with an open, fearless heart. That's my offense. That's my offense, to say, I know I can get hurt. I know there are people I can't trust. I know there's a lot of things that are painful to watch and all of this, and it's all out there, but I'm not going to close down. I'm not going to build walls. I'm going to trust myself, the universe, whatever's coming through. I'm going to trust life, and I'm going to go with an open heart. I'm going to try real hard not to close it. And that is my like practice for the rest of my life.
That's beautiful. One thing is just make sure you have self-compassion for that little girl that built the walls.
Oh, 100%.
Because we have to honor that, right? Like I so feel you on every level, but like there's armor around her for a reason, and that was self-preservation. So you had to do all of that to get to this where you are right this second.
Yeah.
So it's like a beautiful revelation and amazing.
Yeah.
I just want to, I'm like a big inner child person. So I want to take care of her. I want to hug her.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. It's good for, for everyone to hear. It's always good to be, reminded. And that was, because you brought it around to that compassion that I mentioned before. Cause it's like, it's actually all about like me. A lot of times I'm like, oh, I don't really feel like I want to serve other people. I'm still really busy trying to like figure out myself and like put my own like air mask on, I'm like still working on that. And it's all self. And then the more I do that, the more I naturally just outwardly give without even thinking or trying, because I've filled my own cup. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. I have no clue. I've never lived in fear of anything, so we're good. No, I mean, like I controlled every aspect of my life to protect myself from getting hurt. I never realized how much of my life I controlled, neurotically controlled, to protect myself from getting hurt. Whether it was pushing people away, whether it was pulling people close, whether it was smothering people, whether it was running from people, whether it was business and doing great and then self-sabotaging, whether it was, every aspect of my life was all about controlling my pain management. I was doing this internal pain management because my inner child was destroyed growing up, annihilated. And I never healed it ever until recently. So I was just walking around as this wounded inner child and really acting like a child in a lot of ways emotionally, because I never worked through that. And again, I think that's one of the reasons that the work is so important, right? Erica, why don't you talk about your
Who's
viral
Erica? No.
AdaPia.
He does this all the time with names.
Can't. I'm so bad with names. I went Erica instead of AdaPia or Darica. Oh my God, I can't. I'm stopping. So ADE. Okay, ADE.
You can call me AP. A lot of my friends call me
AP. Okay, AP. That I might be able to remember. I never did well in any of those classes. Why don't you talk a little bit about your viral Goldcast and what that was about? Because I think that will help people understand your background a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And where you come from with that.
Sure. So in 2018, I gave a public keynote in a 1,400 person theater in an event called Truth Telling for Truth Seekers. So it was really about like sharing big moments in our lives. There were some really big stories told on stage. And I told the story of this, leaving my first marriage, which is actually coincides with my first awakening, where in essence, I was in so much pain for so many years, for 9 years, in a marriage that was just not working. And I basically like imploded, and I woke up in my body and was like, first of all, where have I been? for 9 years? Like, what am I doing here? What happened in my life? And it was just a really profound moment, but it was from so much pain. And then I gave a 20-minute keynote about, choosing myself, essentially honoring myself and choosing the soul. And this realization that I had then, that my happiness was important because I was living for 9 years for other people, not wanting to disappoint them, my own pride, not wanting to tell my family, especially my dad, like so many things that keep us trapped, right? I put myself in a cage and I kept myself in this cage. So that was fine. It was like it was cathartic. It was so many beautiful things. And then Goalcast found this video online, and they said, hey, we want to make one of our motivational 5-minute videos with, footage and music and all these things, which is amazing because I didn't look for them. The producer of this event had this video out there. And so they created a video, and they released it in January of 2019. I didn't see it before it came out. I wasn't part of the process because that's just how it works. I mean, you can't imagine how many edits I would have had to the video. But regardless, they released this video and it went very viral. The last time I checked, it was like 40 million views. But in the first week alone, it was at 4 million. It was like one of their best performing videos, like out the gate. It was also their most heavily trolled video. So a lot of people took issue with the fact that I left my marriage, and they hated me. They hated me for so many reasons, which were really all about them. But at that time, so this is like 2.5 years ago, I didn't have the fortitude internally to know that. I had a lot of compassion for them, but I internalized a ton of what they were saying. And Kat knows because she was with me at the time. And it was brutal. Like I had PTSD. I still hate Facebook. I still have ickiness around Facebook because I just, sort of don't like the way people showed up. So it threw me into a process where I had to go inside and spend a lot of time excavating essentially leftover shame. And when I rewatch this video and I think about how I told my story, I can see that I still had shame, and how I presented certain parts of my story were still protecting my ex and very subtly putting myself in the position of a perpetrator. Right. Because I didn't say, oh, he abused me or he cheated on me, because that wasn't the point. And so a lot of people they blamed me, and because I didn't blame him. But so much of what was said, not everything, because some people had really wild things to say. But a lot of it was, I was like, hey, I've said all of this to myself. But it took me another 6 months to go through a process of really releasing myself from whatever leftover shame that I have, because shame is so subversive. It's so subversive. So, yeah.
So what that did for you was it brought to the forefront every bit of your subconscious, and every thought you ever had or could had times 1,000. First of all, I'm very protective and loyal. So I'm how dare they rip you apart like that? They don't know you, but that's just my mama bear in me.
Right.
But aside from that, it was actually quite a gift.
Oh, for sure.
Because as woo-woo as that sounds, I don't mean to be like that, but it was quite a gift because it brought to the surface everything that you would have buried.
Yeah.
And the fact that it brought you that made your transformation and your path exponentially faster to get to where you want to go. I mean, I just see that so clearly, but I'm sorry that was hurtful.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it is. It's the gift is always in the wound. It's just that we just don't ever want to face the discomfort of the wound. And and sometimes it takes a while, right? Some things are easy. I find that things get easier. My ability to express in not very many words, I hope, this whole fear paradigm that I was living in, that only comes from years and years and years of really brutal experiences that allow me to know myself and allow me to see it with more levity as well. Like I can laugh at myself about it. But we have so much of, we all have so much buried shame and grief and pain because, you know, historically we're taught that those are not emotions we ever want to look at, feel, God forbid, express. And so we've never grieved parts of ourselves. Like I never properly grieved the person that I was. And I even wrote a piece around, you know, this compassion, this gratitude for this, you know, 22-year-old who did say yes and tried her best for 9 years and like did what she thought she could do to make it all work. And I thank her for bringing me to that point. And then it's like, now I'm taking me further. So yeah, it's magical.
Full circle.
Yep. Always.
Katharine, why don't you give a little bit more of your background?
Oh boy. Any place in particular you want me to start?
Nah, you just wing it. You're great when you wing it.
I am. You know, you said something earlier. I'm just gonna claim it, you know?
Yes.
I think it was you, Michael, who said something about like this linear this idea of linearity in the path. And I think I'll speak to that because one of my favorite things to share with people is that there are no straight lines in nature. None. And yet we constantly impose this idea of like, you know, you like shoot out of college with a degree, and I got an English degree, and everyone was like, oh, yay. Like, she's an adult now. Go have fun. And I've known since I was a child, I was like, I don't really think like much of this is for me, you know? So what do I do with that? How do I play with that? And so the whole idea of like this straight path and like find your purpose is hella triggering for so many people. And, you know, this idea of like getting out of our own way so we can actually wake up to who we are. And it feels like so much of my life and background have been this journey of actually allowing myself to come forward. And meanwhile, you know, experiencing so much of this, like, you know, bosses and family members and friends and just perceived peanut galleries who are like, why aren't you doing it right? And why do you insist on being so this or that? And can't you just be happy with a real job?
Mm.
And, you know, this whole idea that someone else out there has the answer for me is one of the most triggering things you can say to me. Get off, go. And so a lot of my work has really been about how do we get out of this whole prescriptive idea state of who we get to be and what we get to do with our one sweet, precious life on this planet. Thank you. That's a Mary Oliver quote. So yeah, one thing that I feel that my life has done for me, let's put it, you know, because for so long it was like this, like shining a flashlight into the dark, like how do I put all of these pieces together so that other people feel more comfortable with the path I've taken, right? It like makes sense to them. And but here's the thing, y'all. We get lost, number one, in order to find ourselves. I think we talked about that last time, Michael. Like, you got to go into the dark jungle, yeah, and like tussle with your own dragon. And
But wait. I'm going to pause you because you actually went into the dark jungle. So you have a different version of that story. You decided to go into the dark jungle with a stranger.
Yes. So. Several times. But you know what? Here's the funny thing. And this is something I keep talking about and I won't shut up because it feels like I've been given the keys to the universe. But a lot of my work has been about understanding, listening, translating the evolutionary ancient future patterns and technologies that drive evolution on the planet. And I am not an archaeologist. I am not someone trained in this. I am just a mystic who has been thrown into the deep end of Western civilization and has been vigorously learning how to swim. And so this whole idea of like your answer already exists in front of you, right? And I truly believe we live in a fractal world. What does that mean? Patterns exist at every level of reality. They scale infinitely, and they share the same structure. So a lightning bolt looks like a tree root, looks like the veins in your arm. Fundamentally, you have a pattern right there. So this whole idea of like, the more I live, the less I am interested in subscribing to culturally mandated pathways. Politely, no thank you, F that. We have actually exploded out of that. Our world doesn't exist like that. So that is that to me is a very limiting human condition that we've actually placed on our own evolution as a species. So where I'm going with all of this is I had to literally explode out of these pathways. I had to, metaphorically and figuratively speaking, go to the jungle, get lost, you know, talk to the dwarves, fight some tigers. And that really showed me that Kafka, I think, said this, like, I'm going to paraphrase, you don't actually need to do anything. I know that's controversial. Sorry, capitalism. You don't need to do anything. You can sit in your room and the world will roll in ecstasy at your feet. Everything will come to you. So my journey has been less about how do I get to this destination of a role or a job or a career, and more about how do I go out and find the tools that are going to unlock my magic and help it rain on the world. So I'll leave it at that.
I think what I'm learning is through many deep conversations, many light conversations over the past year, is to just get out of the way and let it come to me. I'm not even looking for anything anymore. I'm not seeking things. Like, things are finding me when the time is right. I've done the work. The energy's already in place. I've already put it towards these things. And it doesn't matter what piece is bringing something towards my path. That's just the synchronicity, serendipitous of how, not the reason it is happening. And I'm finally allowing and understanding that and relinquishing my human need to control, right? Because that's a huge one. I mean, it's enormous for me, right? Enormous. Because of my childhood and what I went through, my life was then, I'm going to control everything around me so I don't get hurt as bad as I was hurt, right? Because I never want to feel that hurt again. Now it's at the point where I want to control the least bit possible, because I want to enjoy everything as much as humanly possible. I have never had so much fun getting work done as I have these last 6 to 8 weeks in my life. And I mean, I am working my ass off, but it is the most fun I've ever had. And it's just enjoyable, right? But I'm allowing, and I'm not fighting it. And some days it's doing this piece, some days it's doing this piece. And then within 3 or 4 days, all the pieces are together, and you're kind of like looking at it like, holy shit, that just happened. Like, it's just, there isn't always logic to it, but it's always exactly at the right timing. And part of my timing was always part of my control in the past was always timing. It had to be on my timeline. Pretty sure the universe said F you, because you're here for 80 years and I'm here for eternity, so get the hell out of my way. But that's okay. And I'm slowly learning that. Annie, you were going to say something. I felt it.
I was gonna, first of all, that was very eloquent, Mike. I'm glad you're having fun on the work we're doing. I'm psyched. Katharine, your story resonated so deeply with me because I just want to like sort of piggyback on your story of that when you said it was triggering. Other people not understanding you. I had that for so long. I'm 42 and a half. So we say halves because I have a 9-year-old and everything's in half. It's 42 and a half. So for 42 years, I was a people pleaser, an approval seeker, all I wanted to do was prove myself. And then I'll be good enough. And then I'll be good enough, especially to my father, who is a great man, but on the difficult side when it comes to certain like anger management and things like that. It scares me just a little. So, our relationship has always been sort of where I wanted him to approve. And in my mind, he so didn't. And it comes down to like, even just months ago, you know, that's awesome that you're coaching. I'm really happy for you. What's your real job? And it's like, I would get so triggered and like, well, where are your health benefits? Like, you know, and I worked through this so deeply that once I understood that, and I'm not saying this is everyone in your life, but probably some of the closest people to you, once I understood where he was coming from, in that it had no judgment on me, it was that he wanted me to be safe. He wanted his daughter to be safe. When I understood
his version of things.
In his mind, and he's
right.
Old school, and he's 70, going to be 75, and he's, you know, this is how he did it. This is how the right way. This is how, you know, this is not easy, but this is what you do. You work for the corporation, you get the money, you get the 401k, you get, right, all that. That's not what I'm doing. But I am telling you, when I sat down with him in this new whole space and I understood where he was coming from and had that compassion, everything changed for me. I became totally aligned and I turned that corner and I said, this is my life's mission, to create this thing and be this person and be me. Finally, I was personally free. It was like, I swear to you, it felt like fire. Talk about magic. To bring it full circle to the subject of magic. That was magic.
Annie, thank you. Thank you. I'll save all of my, you know, side comments for messaging, but it is something that resonates very deeply to hear so many people who are like, prove yourself, prove your worth, prove your path. And then to finally be like, and I'm still in that process of kind of like, let me unwind that. That's not mine. Well, love you.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that just frame of how can I have more compassion for the people, and to this like story I shared with Michael last time about literally going into the jungle with this strange man to receive a message. And I had shared on live. I was like, you know, my mom has not heard this story and I think she wants to, and I'm not ready to tell her. And then I posted the video on my Facebook and she literally commented, she's like, oh, I like the one about the machete, you know, the jungle story. And I was like, oh. So yeah, it's so powerful to see yourself and advocate for yourself radically, but not from a perspective of like, you're against me, but rather, oh my God, my mom is like, what is she doing out in the world? This wayfinder, path clearer, pioneer, wild woman, you know, like, I hope she has her cell phone in case this or that. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, Annie, you said something that reminded me of, I don't know if you said it like this, but this is like a phrase that I really love for myself too, is like, be the person you love to be. And I think that's part of the magic of the unraveling and the dissolving and like the opening the door to the cage is really, it's not like be who you are. You know, there's some platitudes that are out there that are too ambiguous. But the idea of like, be who you love to be brings in open-heartedness, and it brings in joy, and it brings in spontaneity, and it brings in like infinite potential. Who would you love to be, like, in any moment? And that to me is like total freedom. is like be who you love to be. And something about what you said reminded me of that. So I wanted to put it out there for whoever's going to listen to this as well, which is like be who you would love to be. I want to be around people who are who they love to be, not, you know, putting up the masks. And I'm like, who am I really talking to? Am I talking to you truly, or am I talking to who you think I want to see? Because I'm more interested in like, I see you on a really deep soul level, and that's who I want to interact with. So yeah. So anyway, just that came through.
Thank you.
I do love those conversations, right? When you get those I get these random calendar invites sometimes, and I don't know who these people are, and I don't know where they came from. I don't know what brought them to my calendar. I mean, it happened last Friday. It was a gentleman that he has a scheduling service, and they connect with people on LinkedIn and then go and schedule with them. But here's the thing. I never had a direct message from the guy. His executive assistant never connected with me. His executive assistant apparently just went to my calendar and scheduled. And it was this strange serendipitous conversation that now he's scheduled another hour for next week or for this Friday coming up. You know, it's the randomness sometimes of how these conversations happen. And at the same time, I love when I get on a call and I look at somebody in the eyes, because I'm very blunt and direct, as everybody knows, been very well, you know, documented for the world to know at this point. And I just look at them and I say, why are we having this conversation? They look at me. Well, we scheduled it. And I'm like, okay, so why are we having this conversation? And then they give me some some surfacey answer. And I just look at them and it's like, okay, so what's the real reason? Can we get down to the core? Because this is 30 minutes and that goes by real fast. And we really need to get something accomplished here. And the way that people react is really funny sometimes. Some people get scared. Some people cry because they've never been seen in their life. Right. So when we have these soul conversations and it's soul level, you don't know what you're going to get with people, especially because that's my go-to. I don't go to surface anymore. I don't even notice surface half of the time. Like, and I know that's strange and I know it's very weird to say, but there's times where I don't know if I'm speaking to male, female, white, black, pink, purple, Hispanic, Latin, if they're even speaking English. I have no clue. Because the minute that we start the call, I'm already at their soul level and I'm like waiting for their soul to just open up and share what it's meant to share with me so that I can reflect back to what they need to hear at that moment. And it's this very strange feeling of this magical moment that can come from when people let their guard down for that 30-second window and allow that glimpse of themselves to be seen. It opens them up to where they want to be permanently and how to find it for themselves. And if nothing else in this world that I am, which includes many different things, that mirror is key. Being that mirror at such a deep level for people so that it can reflect back and have that magical experience for them is one of the things that I enjoy most in the world. Because no matter what emotion it is, whether it's sad, anger, hurt, happiness, joy, love, fear, whatever it is, whatever that feeling is at that moment, it is the most purest, real feeling that they've ever felt in their lives. And
it's the you love to be.
It is a million %. You know, and Giannis's question, I mean, he's made lots of comments and I haven't really gotten to them. What did I lose? Anything for the sake of fun?
Oh my God, everything.
I lost nothing.
What did I lose for the sake of fun?
No, but the fun in the last 6 to 8 weeks, I lost absolutely nothing. I gained everything, Giannis, because my intent is pure. My fun is pure. What I'm doing is for pure intent and pure reason. So I didn't lose a thing. I found so many things from finding the fun in my life, from enjoying the moments, from enjoying in wherever I'm at. It didn't mean I was always happy. It didn't mean it was always easy. It didn't mean it was always great. Because trust me, a 4-year-old throwing stuff at you, hitting you, jumping on you while you're trying to do live shows or on conference calls, and screaming at you and yelling at you, and then the other two having fits. It's not easy.
Mm.
But I've got to tell you, when you're in that space, it's still fun. Even if I just cry back at them, because I've done that too in the last 6 to 8 weeks. They don't like it when I do that either. So sometimes you need to be that mirror for them too.
And that's the breath framework, is the mirror, the actual human mirror that we've created, right? I mean, isn't it mirroring our journeys from beginning to healing? And so it's making us a mirror in helping people to go through their journey and guiding them.
Mhm.
It is. It's showing them what they don't see in themselves. You know, what AdaPia had to find on her own, right? What Katharine had to literally go around the world and into jungles with strangers to find.
Hi, Blair.
Hi, Blair.
I
Hi,
wanted
Rhonda.
to ask
Hi,
the gentleman who just said, for the sake of fun, like, I feel into that, and I think, what's an underlying paradigm that would cause that question to come up, as though, like, for the sake of fun? Is it because you think that fun is not okay when, as it relates to work or life? Like, I know at a certain point growing up, it was like, no, you can't have fun anymore. Like, you need to get serious. You need to go into this matrix. You need to, like, have a career, all the things that, like, Katharine, you're talking about. And it's like, and it's all of a sudden, it's like fun is just off the table, totally off the table. And so as that built up in me, at least, like, the fun loving side would only come out at very certain times and around certain very, very specific people that I felt safe with or who didn't know me. Because what happens as we go into the system of professionalism is that, and especially for women, especially in male dominated industries, which has been where I've placed myself, I had a belief that I wouldn't be taken seriously if I wasn't serious.
Mhm. Control.
And
Control.
talk about a cage. I mean, that is a straitjacket, because I am actually not that serious. People who really know me know that I'm not. But so I saw that question about the fun, and it's like, and I don't know the intention behind the question, right? Words are, like, especially, it's hard to really interpret, but I just would ask you to question, is it because you have a negative view of fun? Or was it something else? Because I know that's where I used to come from, was just like, oh, must be nice, or having such a good time, must be nice, or having fun. Like, what? But, and I'm sitting here in my own self, imposed misery about, well, I need to be serious and I need to be taken seriously, and all of it, almost nun-like, almost like, no, better not let them see that side of me. So anyway, that just came up with that question. I don't know if the gentleman is still on or if anybody else wants to comment on it, but, like, I'm over being so serious about myself. And actually, laughter and levity are one of the most amazing healing tools that exist. And Kat, we talked about this last week, and you said, laugh and the joke will appear. There's a saying that says, I'm the joke.
Yeah.
Every time. It's me. It's me. I'm the joke. And I can't stop laughing at myself now, because I'm like, I'm the joke every single time. And it's just been, and even as I say it, I feel the energy rise from my belly of just this clearing, amazing energy, because yeah, I'm the joke. So I may as well just have a good time.
And part of the definition for fun for me was how I treated fun, when I was using, right? Like, heavily using. So being sober 15 years, I started to believe I couldn't have fun sober, right? Because the only way I knew that fun was to tear down, destroy, and be I don't even know what the right word is, but, like, I mean, just be so in shambles and so out of control in every aspect of my life that was what I believed was fun, right? So now being sober almost 15 years, it's like I look back and it's like I really didn't understand what fun was. I think just now I'm starting to. right?
Hmm.
Like I'm still learning what it is.
I feel like for both of you, it was fear of fun. You feared, I mean, at least AdaPia, like you feared that fun was vulnerability, that laughing and like it was vulnerable, it was weak.
Totally.
It showed a weakness in you. Oh, you're a girl that's gonna laugh. Like then you're not to be
Yeah.
taken seriously.
Can't be silly. Won't take
No.
you
Then
seriously.
yeah, right. And you're dismissed. Yeah. So there was remember when you were talking earlier about your life, fear-based life. That was so part of that. You know, living with that fear around it as that control.
Totally.
Now you don't have that. It's awesome.
I want to say something that, Annie, you were speaking earlier to that, like, how do we, if we feel like we're right here, then kind of the opposite is what's going to help bring us into balance.
Mhm.
I love that, by the way. And AdaPia, as you were talking, I think we talked about this last week as well, but something I've been really investigating, and so what a beautiful opportunity to come full circle, is these like paired opposites, right? And archetypal. So the sage and the fool are connected.
Mm-hmm.
And so often when I get all up in my like sage and I'm like, I'm so wise, I know everything. You know, we all have those moments where, right? But then if I'm not willing to laugh at myself, then I'm not actually fully tapped into my sage. Right? Because I've left out the levity. I've left out the ability to not take myself so seriously. And the same thing with the fool. If we're laughing all the time, but we can't actually like stand in our center,
Mhm.
then we've we've gone off center, we've gone off balance. So I think it's a really powerful thing. If you want to be fully expressed, you need both. You need what feel like the polar opposites to actually bring yourself together.
Amen.
So you need
That wholeness that you're talking about, that's what Mike and I would say when we are going to the land. We've reached the land of fulfillment. It's like that balance and wholeness, that oneness that you're talking about has both. It's not so pushed to one side, all serious business, or I'm such a fuck up. You know, like I can't get it together business wise. You know, like there's this, it's all of you.
Yes.
Embodied one.
Yes.
talk about allowing.
Right.
Allowing to be those polar opposites, allowing yourself to be, you know, the brilliant one and the idiot at the same time, right? And allow yourself to be the stick in the mud and then the, you know, the fun center of attention, right? And finding that balance within to allow yourself to find your own personal extremes of where you create your magic and happiness, right? And to do it in a way that works for you. That when I was younger, it was always around drugs and alcohol and putting myself in dangerous situations, to now it's how do I do this without the dangerous situations and really just live into myself and love myself on all levels, no matter which extreme I am at that moment, right? And embracing it, right? Secure me versus insecure me, proud me versus embarrassed of myself me, or whatever it is, right? And maybe I just take the embarrassed of myself and just embarrass my children instead, because that's always fun. But like, I think there's ways that we embrace all sides of ourselves, right? And by bringing that all together and allowing ourselves to play those roles and accept ourselves and love ourselves within it is really a key to it, right? It's a key to finding that fulfillment that evolves every day. Because once you get the fulfillment, it doesn't stay there. like every day, if it's not moving forward and evolving each day, then you're going backwards, because that means you're staying stagnant. So reaching fulfillment, like Annie mentioned, that, you know, this is where we're at, right? We found our place of personal fulfillment. Doesn't mean we don't have a day that we want to kick ourselves in the head, right? It doesn't mean that, you know, the day that we're mopey us, or the day that we're not as productive, or the day that, you know, we're sad. But without the sad, we couldn't be happy. Without the anger, you can't be at peace. Without, you know, fear, you can't be courageous. So you have to find the balance of all these spectrums of self, and you have to be able to live within it and find your personal fulfillment from each layer. And then as we move forward, the layers just get deeper and thicker. And it's really about the journey of how to get there and how to continue it and how to continue to move forward in that direction that works for ourselves.
That was a mic drop.
I mean, that's the magic right there.
You hold enough space, eventually it'll come.
What I also heard, Michael, what you were saying when you're talking about opposites is, to me, I heard the opposite of allowing is resisting. And so if we can notice when we're resisting, that's how we get to the allowing, because its opposite is going to show up, which at least for me came through for myself as resistance, is the opposite facing allowing. And every time I have resistance, that is a signal to go there, go where the resistance is and allow it instead of resist, and use it as the portal. Basically, it just like flips into allowing with conscious intention, right? Like awareness breeds so much choice, and try to use it as the portal through to allowing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So does self-awareness only exist if you have the absence of self-awareness?
Does self-awareness only exist if you have the absence? No, to me, awareness is part of the waking up process. It's the spectrum we're moving through right now, right? We're born completely aware, then we get conditioned
Mm-hmm.
and unconscious, and then we spend the rest of our lives becoming aware again. So I don't know if it's opposite. I mean, I think in ultimate paradox, yes, but in the human paradox, it's self-awareness is a choice, so it just requires some effort until it becomes second nature.
So, okay, so here's a question, right? We all go through these transition periods, right? Which are so much fun, and I know we all love them. And Charisse, nobody says it better, Charisse, that it's like getting rebirthed, like literally going through the process of being born again.
Yeah.
And I always make the comment that my head won't fit, but that's besides the point, right? Like we're getting too graphic, but that's just me. But when we hit those moments and we're in that transition period, it is the absence of being self-aware. Because in those moments, for me, I feel so blocked, so disconnected, so discombobulated that I could literally probably be sitting there drooling and not even notice, because I feel so disconnected from self. Now, granted, that's part of the process of getting to that next evolution, whatever you want to call it, right? Level, area, space, part of the journey, whatever comes after the transition. Mostly clarity, but you have to go through that unclear period. But does it truly break down to, before we hit that clarity of being super self-aware or hyper acutely self-aware, like Annie and I term it, that we have to not be self-aware during that transition period? Because the hopelessness, the lost, the stuck feeling during that transition period, to me, feels very not self-aware, or absence of being self-aware.
I think you're saying not self-aware, and what you're saying is allowing.
Well, I don't do that.
You're defining allowing.
I'm not very good at doing that.
That time when you have to let it all go and not even know where you are is allowing, before you get to that hyperacute, the next stage, in my eyes.
And the fact that you're questioning it, to me, is self-awareness.
Right.
So it's really about allowing and being stubborn and not wanting to allow.
Oh, you're resisting.
What AdaPia just said. So yes.
Yep.
Am I the only one that resists it? Maybe. I don't know.
No, resistance is in all of us. It's what I loved how AdaPia said, you have to go toward it. You have to go to it and remove it.
Does anybody else like to see how much pain they can go through in the transitions before they go to it?
It's like this idea of like, I need to work for it.
Uh-huh.
It should feel like a,
like death.
Exactly. And that's something that I am in the process of a little death right now. And I'll share this because it keeps coming up. And I, without going into all the details, there's something I'm doing that's really essential to my mission here on this planet. And the timing wasn't quite right this time around. So I was like, but yeah, I'm going to force it. I'm going to do it. Said I would do it.
Yeah.
Right. And
make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think all of us here carry that warrior archetype of like, you know, I will get my bulldozer out, no problem. and and so I was doing that, and then I was like, literally, we're in eclipse season, so the universe is just kind of like like taking it off my plate, and I'm sobbing. I'm like, how could you? I'm in commitment. And then finally, I get to the end of my tether, and I was like, you know what, Kat? Maybe I just put it down. It's fine. Maybe there's something bigger here. So I put it down. Everyone involved is so gracious, so accepting, so supportive. It's not the big cataclysmic thing I imagined. And then literally last night, I had been bumping up against something. I was like, something wants to shift here, and I don't know what, but I'm so determined to know what it is. Right? And then finally, I just set it down, and then like clockwork, I give birth to this miraculous breakthrough about what it really is last night. And I was like, oh, it was that easy. But I had to go through this like 2-week long like childbirth process of ripping myself apart. And then I just sidestepped my own resistance, and it's there.
You got out of the way.
Yeah.
Amen. Finally. Took me long enough. I like it like that. Thank you.
Takes a little pain. It's all right.
How much self-infliction can we have here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, we're masochists. Like, truly.
Total.
Raise your hand if you're a masochist.
Definitely. Oh yeah. Yep. I own that one. Yep.
Like the other day, Mike was like, I was like, well, why don't we just do this? And he was like, are you saying that we just made everything exactly how it should be? It's perfect. And now you want to do that? Like, are you insane? Like, I had to bring something else in to put on top of everything that had just fallen into place for us and mess it up or make it painful or drag myself through the mud. It's like, just let me.
Can we have a support group?
It's a support group. Imagine.
Yeah.
It's really funny how we all are so self-aware. We all know what it takes. We all know what the steps are. We've all gone through this time and life over life and lesson over lesson, and we still fight. We just still fight. Like there's just, at some point, does that get easier? Do any of the four of us know this? Because I'm curious. I've been around quite a while, and I still can't figure that out.
You know, I don't know if I have an answer per se, but something I talk a lot about is the game. What game are you playing? What game are you invested in? What game are you running? And I think when we really start, like, part of my game is if I don't struggle and experience all these things, then is it really worth it? Is it really valuable? Did I actually get there? It was too easy. And so part of my game is, and this is a game I'm breaking right now. I'm shifting out of that game. But I think it's really fascinating because I think that we all have these invisible things that we're running, these programs, whatever you want to call it. I like games because it feels less like I've been incepted by something and more like, you know, like I picked up a dice one day and I was like, yes, I'm going to choose to play the game of life. Mm-hmm. But we don't always have that awareness right away of like, what did I inherit? What was I taught was the game? And then we go through that like breaking apart process of being like, oh, could I actually choose to live in total wonder and joy and let life just bring me what's mine? Mm-hmm. That's one way to play.
Mm-hmm. when you know your game
Mm-hmm.
that you're running, that's the ultimate self-awareness. You know your game.
Whew. Mwah, that's hot.
But it feels like every time I learn one of my games, there's a new one beneath it.
Oh
That's the magic of life, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That means you're a game master, Michael. Welcome.
Yeah.
I feel like I live in Groundhog Day a little bit.
It's cosmic monopoly. I mean, it's you know, it's a spiral. Like we're just, you know, it's like video games, and it just goes up to like the next level, and it's harder, and it's harder, but you have like more pieces, and you have like more superpowers, and you have like all, you know, all the different things. But at the same time, if it wasn't as hard as we make it, then we wouldn't be able to laugh at ourselves. We'd be so boring.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have nothing to laugh at if it was just smooth sailing, which is like such a challenging thing to accept, because I much prefer things to go smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's just never going to happen. And the day I decide that it's okay, it might actually get easier, but I'm still not there yet. Even though I have the awareness of it, I still am not ready to embody the acceptance or the allowance that it's not going to be easy so that it can be easy. We can have this conversation when I get there, but right now I'm cognitively there, but I won't accept it.
Okay. I want to quick leapfrog his. I see Senor Pesada Heyoka has said something about cheat codes. So I'm curious to know, what are people's cheat codes?
What's a cheat code?
Like, sort of like, how did you, was there a doorway? Was there a hack? Did you find a way through that you were like, whoa, oh, wait, that just rearranged everything?
Laughter.
Boom. That's a good one.
Laughter. Like, just, I'm the cosmic joke. Just being able to laugh at myself every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most instantaneous, like, shocking to me. It's just not taking myself so seriously.
I love that.
Worth. Worth to me is the epicenter of every single thing, everything that we talk about, everything that we go through, all of our struggles, all of our joys, you turn the lens around and look at your self-worth and where that meter is, what that barometer is, and that's going to tell you everything. That's the game changer for me.
For me, it's the power of a reframe. Taking what I always considered being over analytical to this extreme negative concept, how it always tore me apart and everything around me, to now flipping it to where I'm hyper acutely self-aware. And that's what keeps me in my core values on a daily basis, and living within them, within flow, has been this enormous shift for me. And don't get me wrong, there's days I fight it, but I'm aware that I am. But it's still that choice, right? That masochist, one. I need to make it a little bit more difficult so it's worth it. I'm not sure if it's too easy, if I'm going to still want it. So I got to make it harder.
Mm-hmm.
These are amazing codes. I love them. And I feel like, I don't know, we've kind of written the book on life. Like, is the show over now?
Life or the show? I mean, I got 40. I got 41. I got 40 and a half years left, so
Yeah.
41 and a half.
That's why things continue to be difficult sometimes, because that's life, and that's the beauty of life, that the show is never over until it's over, and then we're done.
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn cuts us off at 4 hours, so LinkedIn has a show over point. LinkedIn has a show over point. But it's that Annie's right, though. That is the beauty of life, because the minute that you get to where you want to be, or where you think you want to be,
there's more.
There's always more, right? There's that next, okay, well, let's go next, right? And
level.
My mind always hated goals, because the minute I would hit one, I'd have to start that whole process over again of, okay, what's a goal? So now I just do legacy, because now I just have something to flow with for the rest of my life, and I'm very happy on a macro scale.
Reframe.
Right. But on the macro scale, but it doesn't mean I don't have my micro things that I deal with, right? So, and it doesn't mean I don't have my micro things that I'm creating and building and living in creation these days. Right now, all my energy is going to creation and manifestation. That's where all my energy is flowing right now. And it's working. I mean, it's just, I'm out of my own way, and it's for the greater good, and it's within my purpose. And, I'm just in my happy place. I mean, that's just where I'm at right now.
I love that you brought up creation, because that to me is it's actually like a very empowered essence of magic. Like, to create is magic. And we talk about transformation, and we can we talk about transmutation, and it happens when we're creating. Like, that's how it happens. It's not something that happens to us, like we're sitting back and like we're gonna transform. Like, we actually can be far more empowered in our transformation when we're in the process of creation, because we're pulling down whatever we need to make something happen, to create it, right? Like, creation is magic. I mean, look at like everything that exists. Like, I look out my window, I think about the universe. Like, if that's not magic, I don't know what is. And it's all a living, intelligent, creative process. It's not a thing, it's a verb. And that's it. Like, of course we're magic, because we're a fractal of it. And so if we're not creating, we're not in our magic.
This fire, girl.
That's the ending mic drop right there. That, I think, that was the ending point.
That was juicy.
That was great.
You guys inspired me.
Thank you. I hope somebody took notes, because I'm pretty sure we all had mic drops at one point or another. And if anybody remembers our brilliance, please remind us, because sometimes we don't remember our own. Yes. And thank you, everybody. I love this. This was amazing.
Thank you, ladies. To share space with you was magical. Honestly, I say that in the least cheesy way possible.
I say it in the most cheesy way possible.
Yeah, all of it.
Yep.
Thank you for holding the space, Michael. Thank you all for being here. What a pleasure. Whew, I feel invigorated.
Me too.